also known as Half Mountain Medical Center. Shi Zhou, who was penniless, inherited the Half Mountain Medical School and went all out to make money. Small advertisements, promotional activities, collaborations, and street performances of double read. Making money is not easy, Zhouzhou strives hard. Seeking medical treatment is a duty, earning money is an instinct, and abusing oneself is a byproduct. But why are the eyes of fools getting sharper and sharper day by day, and the identity of sick patients getting rarer and rarer day by day? Even the meaty little puppies are showing the strength of the cute king, keywords of the novel. What kind of bad thoughts can a divine doctor have? No pop-ups, what kind of bad thoughts can a divine doctor have? Download the complete TXT collection, what kind of bad thoughts can a divine doctor have? Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. The Impoverished Doctor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The Impoverished Doctor. Hold on, don't give up. When he received the news that Han Banshan was critically ill, Shi Zhou was delivering a difficult childbirth mother. The mother was on the brink of death, and the mother-in-law outside the door slammed the door and shouted, "Protect your grandson, you must protect my grandson." Shi Zhou ignored the sound outside and stabbed the woman's acupoints such as Higu and Sanin with silver needles. Not long after the injection, the mother woke up again and immediately stretched her body. She used all her strength and screamed mournfully before giving birth. Mother and son are safe, and the host not only provided medical expenses, but also gave extra money. Shi Zhou rushed to see Han Banshan for the last time, but his aunt fought desperately to stop him. Shi Zhou was her money tree, and she ran away. Who will come to see her in the future? Seeing that she couldn't stop her, Auntie used her trump card and said, "If you dare to leave, you won't be allowed to come back again in the future." Shi Zhou has no home, and without her aunt, she doesn't even have a place to stay. Sure enough, as soon as Auntie said these words, Shi Zhou stood still. When Auntie saw it, she felt proud and knew it. "Don't you hurry back to cook for your brother. He's been lazy all day." As a result, Shi Zhou said, "Auntie, I have saved your dowry and would like to use some for now." The expression on Auntie's face cracked as she said, "What? Take some for use. How much do you save? You don't want to pay for your food and drink every day. Han's surname is not your father, he dies when he dies. What kind of filial piety do you want to be? Do you still take money? Are you crazy?" Upon hearing this, Shi Zhou didn't delay for a second and turned around to leave. When she arrived at Diao Mountain, she was still one step late. It turned out that the wind was strong last night, and after the candle fell, the mourning cloth was lit. Han Banshan's coffin and Han's mansion were completely burned down by the fire. My father still remembered you before he passed away. He left the old clinic for you, so please manage it well. Compared to Shi Zhou's regret, Han Kongqing appeared relaxed. She took possession of Han Banshan's medical clinic in the capital and, before leaving, gave Shi Zhou the property deed and land deed of the old medical clinic in Diao Mountain. Before embarking on the road, Han Kongqing glanced at Shi Zhou with a hint of jealousy in her eyes. She cautiously pressed down on the package and got into the carriage. The verdant mountains of Diao Mountain rise and fall like layers of waves, stretching into the sky. A flock of birds flew by, embellishing the prosperous mountains with their agile postures. It is rumored that a high monk in the Fuguang temple on the mountain transformed into a relic after nirvana. Han Banshan built the Banshan Medical Hall during the peak of incense at the Fuguang temple, which was once incredibly beautiful. However, when facing the three dilapidated rooms, Zhou couldn't help but curse loudly, "My son Han Banshan has 18 generations of ancestors. Is this a medical clinic?" At this moment, a group of people, old and young, suddenly rushed out of the hospital and fell in front of Shi Zhou, hugging her legs and neck without letting go. "Master! Dr. Han has just been buried, you can't go dig Dr. Han's ancestral tomb." Upon hearing this, Shi Zhou mechanically turned his head to look at him and said, "Are you the attending physician here?" The old man nodded frantically and said, "Yes." Shi Zhou twitched his lips and said, "Han Banshan is really lucky to have you as a doctor sitting in a museum." The old man looked surprised and said, "Master, you are really a clever strategist. Little man Jinyofu, you have met master." The younger one looked up with a simple and honest face and said, "Xiao Tong is honest. He is an apprentice in the medical school and has seen his employer before." Shi Zhou took a deep breath and said, "How did this medical clinic end up like this?" Jinyofu is very aggrieved. I really can't blame him for this, it was struck by lightning. Originally, Dr. Han would still come over, but later he simply stayed at home to collect money and had people go to the clinic to collect medicine, which resulted in the clinic not being able to make ends meet. The money from last month has not been distributed yet. Shi Zhou was confused and didn't expect the halfway house to reach this point. Jinyofu was worried that she might leave and no one would give him monthly payment in the future. He rolled up his sleeves and said, "Master, if you're worried about this hole, I'll make it up now." As a result, Jinyofu shuddered and climbed onto the roof of the hospital. Before he could even start repairing it, he heard a smack and fell off the roof, breaking one of his legs. At that time, Shi Zhou was laughed at angrily and said, "Dr. Zhen, having you is really my blessing." Jinyofu lay on the ground humming, "Master, help me. Half a pillar of incense." Jinyofu was lying on the hospital bed, with one leg fixed on a wooden board. Tong Qingzhen was just as instructed by the boat to apply mud and solidify Jinyofu's broken leg. Jinyofu was worried and said, "Master, can these mud really cure a broken leg?" Shi Zhou ignored him and only said after wrapping his legs, "You have 200 won per month. Today's medical expenses are 50 yuan, medical expenses are 18 yuan, and material expenses are 80 yuan. Now you owe me 110 yuan, which will be deducted from your next month's money." Jinyofu was stunned and said, "Isn't the material taken from the back mountain?" Shi Zhou remained expressionless and said, "Honestly, I scraped off the mud on Dr. Zhen's leg and reduced it by 81. You still owe the clinic 31. Jinyofu quickly stopped him and said, "Don't do it, don't do it. 81 is 81. The hospital was in disrepair for a long time, and the only main room was still covered in spider web dust. Looking at the clean side room, Shi Zhou felt a little more at ease, and finally had a place to settle down. She was using paste to stick window paper while calculating that the hall and room were too small, with a few more places for people to rest in severe cases. The space in the pharmacy and medical area was too small, making it crowded with people. The empty space behind the medical clinic can be fully used for expansion. After this calculation, Shi Zhou was suddenly startled and sweated profusely. How much silver would it take? She ran to the clinic to look through the consultation records, then held an account book and calculated, "Dr. Zhen, what kind of patients do you have in the clinic on weekdays?" Jinyofu paused and said, "They are all nearby villagers. For example, the hunter at the foot of the mountain accidentally falls into the trap he dug and gets injured. He will prescribe medicine nearby. What else? Hunters' children often cry at night and come to prescribe medicine." Shi Zhou looked up and felt something was wrong. "Is that all? Hunter's daughter.in.law will prescribe medication to regulate menstrual and abdominal pain." Shi Zhou almost smashed his abacus and said, "I dare say that this medical clinic can continue to operate, all thanks to the hunter's family of 3. Jinyofu felt guilty and said, "The monks on the mountain will come and prescribe some medicine for injuries, but it's for the Buddha. We don't charge for it." Shi Zhou took a deep breath and said, "No one came to see the doctor, right?" Jinyofu also felt worried. When the villagers in the village seek medical treatment, they all prioritize going to the Jishir Hall to find Sun Qingshu. The difficult and complicated diseases that Sun Qingshu cannot see come to us. Shi Zhou was surprised and said, "Can you still see difficult and complicated diseases?" As a result, Zhen Youfu sneered, "Of course I can't watch it." In fact, when Dr. Han took me in, he did want me to be an apprentice, but later he found out that my talent was foolish and I could only run errands. Shi Zhou exploded and said, "So how did you become a doctor?" Zhen Youfu chuckled and said, "Dr. Han forced me to memorize common local symptoms and prescribe medication accordingly. In short, taking medication won't kill anyone." Shi Zhou was startled and said, "No wonder there was no one inquiring at the Mid-Mountain Medical Center. So it's because of you, a quack doctor." Zhen Youfu shrunk his neck and said, "I don't want to either, but Mrs. Han is often invited for consultations, and the clinic can't be empty. Dr. Han asked me to fool him first and then push him on when he comes back." Shi Zhou couldn't believe his ears. "Do you dare to do such a reckless thing?" End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Dr. Shi, who loves to post small advertisements. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Dr. Shi, who loves to post small advertisements. Zhen Youfu quickly said, "It's all Dr. Han who forced me. If you want to find him, you have to find him. Shi Zhou is crazy. Han Banshan has been buried. Who is she looking for?" In the afternoon, Shi Zhou took a stack of documents and went to the government office to report the change of ownership of the medical clinic. When he entered, he almost bumped into someone and said, "I'm sorry." The other person is a middle-aged person who is very kind and waves his hand at her, indicating that he doesn't mind. Shi Zhou was very pleased. It seems that the people here are simple, so it is not a problem to establish a foothold. Unexpectedly, the slap came quickly. Not long after returning to the clinic, a group of people suddenly arrived outside, blocking the entrance of the clinic. The leading young master had a lewd expression on his face and looked critically at Shi Zhou. "Is it you who went to exchange the house and land deeds today?" Shi Zhou nodded and said, "It's me." "May I ask if you are?" "Young master, I won't change my surname. Zhao Xiaowu will. Your master betrothed Han Kongqing to young master Hier. Do you know this?" Shi Zhou was taken aback for a moment. "It's impossible. Master left the medical clinic in the capital to his senior sister. Why did he even schedule her marriage at Dao Mountain?" Zhao Xiaowu slapped the ledger and said, "Are you trying to be naughty? The engagement letter is here, can it still be fake? If the young master doesn't talk nonsense to you, then today we'll let you know the rules. Whoever inherits the Half-Mountain Medical School will have an engagement with the second young master. Do you have any objections to this?" Shi Zhou frowned. Are they planning to demand protection fees or are they trying to extort money? Young master Hier has transferred the engagement letter to me, so from today on, you have an engagement with me. Hurry up and tidy up these 2 days, prepare the house deed and land deed, and I will come to pick you up in 3 days. Shi Zhou was stunned, and on the first day of inheriting the medical school, he was targeted by a scoundrel. As Shi Zhou turned around, he saw Zhen Youfu using Tong Qingzhen as a crutch, holding a package in his hand, as if he was about to run away. Shi Zhou was surprised and said, "Dr. Zhen, you have figured it out and plan to find another way out." Zhen Youfu sighed and said, "Master, stop procrastinating and run for your life. If it's too late, you won't be able to leave." "So Zhao Xiaowu asked you to be his third mistress." Originally, Zhao Xiaowu was a famous local bully who also kept a group of little brats under his command, specializing in the immoral act of bullying men and women. The second young master in his mouth is the young master of He Yuanwei's family in the village, who specializes in dressing up for Zhao Xiaowu and intimidating and luring good women into submission. Zhen Youfu was worried and said, "Since ancient times, I have never seen a marriage contract that can still be transferred. Isn't that bullying you, being lonely and without a basis? This medical clinic is definitely not going to open." Unexpectedly, just as he finished speaking, Shi Zhou said, "Starting from next month, your salary will increase by 50 yuan per month." Zhen Youfu was greatly shocked. The medical clinic was almost closed, and he was given a monthly salary increase. Are you boasting or boasting? Zhen Youfu hesitated and said. Master, I think Zhao Xiaowu must have taken a liking to this medical clinic. When Dr. Han was alive, he didn't dare to make any plans. Now you're the only girl in the family. Are you really not afraid? Shi Zhou replied, you can leave if you don't work, but Tong has to stay honestly. He's from the hospital, so you can't take him away. Zhen Youfu hurriedly said, I do it. I do it. But the boss is afraid that Zhao Xiaowu will come and cause trouble again. Shi Zhou too didn't lift his head and said, I'm curious about how capable they are. Let's see if I can chop off his 3 heads and 6 arms. The words were released, but facing the current situation of the medical clinic unable to make ends meet, Shi Zhou was very worried. Without patients, there would be no medical fees. He had to find a way to have people come to see him. After much thought, Shi Zhou started cutting the prescription paper into small pieces and forced Zhen Youfu to write a small advertisement. Small advertisement. What small advertisement? Zhen Youfu stared blankly at Shi Zhou, looking bewildered. Don't worry about any small advertisements, let me say one thing, you write one. Banshan Medical Center specializes in treating difficult and complicated diseases, and sees patients for free every Friday of the month. Zhen Youfu wrote a full 10 sheets in one night, used a large portion of the white candle, and his eyes were filled with tears. Shi Zhou called Tong Qingzhen over and said, you cook some paste early tomorrow morning, and I'll go with you to the streets and alleys of the market to put it on. Zhen Youfu was stunned. No wonder she dares to take over the half-mountain medical clinic that no one is interested in. It has a lot of potential as an unscrupulous businessman. The next morning, Shi Zhou and Tong Qingzhen rushed to the market. The streets were bustling with people coming and going, and the vendors kept shouting, creating a scene of vibrant rural markets. Shi Zhou searched everywhere for places that were too crowded and too rainy to get wet. The two of them put up some effort, but they managed to put up all 10 small advertisements they had written. Shi Zhou looked up and said, this paper is easy to break. If it gets torn by someone with cheap hands, they won't be able to see it. To put it simply, this is a long-term battle, and we have to stick a few pictures every now and then to maintain the number of times we are seen. Suddenly, screams and curses came from the market, followed by a disheveled beggar grabbing a bun and running frantically through the crowd while eating. The guy at the steamed bun shop was holding a shovel and broom, desperately chasing after him. Stinky fool, if you dare to grab it again, you'll break your dog leg. Tong Qingzhen quickly pulled Shi Zhou back and said, Master, please stay back. I heard that guy is the culprit of this street and often robs people of food because he's not worth it. He's also a fool, and even the locals can't do anything about him. Shi Zhou was a bit envious. Being able to eat a king's meal was also a skill. If it were for her, her leg would have been broken long ago. As he was thinking, Shi Zhou's stomach barked twice. The porridge in the morning was not enough, so the clock was hungry. Tong Qingzhen remained silent and then took out a few yuan from his own pocket to buy 5 large meat buns and distribute them to Shi Zhou. Master, I'm hungry and bought too many. Can you help me eat too? I'll leave one for Dr. Zhen, he said. Shi Zhou only ate one, and she felt embarrassed to let Tong honestly know that the shopkeeper was penniless. She had to draw a big cake for him and said, you work hard with me, and I'll give you an additional 51 per month next month. Tong honestly took a big bite of the steamed bun and said honestly, that's only possible if there are patients in the clinic. Shi Zhou nervously turned his head and said, there will definitely be some. The two of them returned to the clinic and walked to the foot of the mountain. Suddenly, they saw something black squatting on the roadside. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a fool snatching steamed buns from the market. The fool kept staring at the bun in Tong Qingzhen's hand. Tong Qingzhen hid behind Shi Zhou and said, Master, let's just leave one for Dr. Zhen. Let's give it to him. It's quite pitiful. Although Tong honestly wants to give a fool steamed buns, he is afraid of being beaten. Shi Zhou observed the fool and found that he looked very scary, but his eyes were pure and clean, innocent, not like he was hitting someone with dementia. Shi Zhou handed the steamed buns in his hand to him and said, "Do you want to eat them?" The fool's eyes lit up and he shouted, "Yes." He reached out and grabbed the buns, squatting on the ground and eating them. Not long after Shi Zhou returned to the hospital, he suddenly heard someone shouting loudly, "Go! Get lost!" Tong Qingzhen immediately ran out to take a look and said, "Master, that's Uncle Hunter at the foot of the mountain." Shi Zhou followed and saw the hunter holding a stone, throwing it at the fool. The fool looked like a frightened dog, shrinking into a trembling ball. As the hunter moved, he took a few steps back. Pop! The fool let out a scream and was hit by a stone on his arm, only huddled up and crouched on the ground, unable to swallow. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. A Kind But Few Doctor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. A Kind But Few Doctor, Go! Why don't you get out of here? The hunter picked up a more convenient stone and threw it fiercely at the fool. Bang! The stone hit the fool's head without bias, causing his head to break and bleed. The fool still didn't seem to attack anyone, just sat on the ground and cried loudly, "Wow! It hurts! Uncle!" Tong Qingzhen couldn't help but shout. The hunter only then noticed that the people in the clinic were watching. He explained, "He's a fool. He injured several people in the market, and I drove him away." Tong Qingzhen saw the fool's head bleeding and quickly said, "Uncle, he followed us up the mountain and didn't harm us." "Ha! Then, be careful," said the hunter with a sarcastic expression. The hunter passed by the fool and gave him a glare. The fool was so frightened that he shrank back and cried even harder. Tong honestly dared not go over, "Boss, he's bleeding, but I'm afraid he'll hit me." The meaning is that he wants to help a fool, but he is afraid. As a doctor, Shi Zhou couldn't bear to see anyone bleeding in front of her. She walked up to the crying fool and said, "Stop crying, come with me, I'll show you the wound." The fool looked up at her, and the green trees behind the boat were shaded. The sunlight shone through the cracks in the branches and leaves, casting a golden mottled patch that made her shine like a shining golden cloak. The fool stared at her, his pitch-black pupils slightly contracting. He grabbed the hand that Shi Zhou had reached out and obediently followed her to the clinic. Passing by Tong Qingzhen's side, Tong Qingzhen shrunk his neck and quickly ran away, saying to Shi Zhou from a long distance, "Master, his medical fee will be deducted from last month's money." Shi Zhou. 15 minutes later, a tall figure curled up in a ball, huddled in the corner like a little mouse, nibbling on pancakes. Tong Qingzhen was worried. He pitied the fool, but he was also afraid that the fool would hit people recklessly. Why hasn't he left yet? Can't he be relying on us? Zhenyofu was rubbing his balls and muttering, "The whole market treats him like a plague god, only you two treat him like a person. Who do you guys blame?" Tong Qingzhen lowered his head and scratched his fingers. "Actually, there are only a few people to eat. As long as he doesn't hit people recklessly, he can sleep in the firewood room, and it won't cost much money." Zhenyofu sighed and said, "The main reason is that the owner has a kind heart but not many. The hospital is poor, and she doesn't want to raise idle people. Whenever a patient comes to her door." As soon as he finished speaking, a weak voice suddenly asked at the door, "Is this the Mid-Mountain Medical Center? Can you treat any difficult or complicated diseases?" Shi Zhou jumped up in one fell swoop. Did the small advertisement become useful so quickly? Yes. The person who came was an old lady, with a big and round belly, a hood covering her face, and hands supporting her waist. She walked very difficult. If it weren't for the hood taking off her wrinkled face, Shi Zhou would have suspected that she was pregnant. Shi Zhou quickly glanced at the old lady and his gaze fell on her stomach. What disease does the old man come to see? The old lady is 56 years old and has given birth to a pair of twins. Shortly after giving birth, she felt uncomfortable in her stomach, but it didn't affect her movements, so she never cared about it. Unexpectedly, since this year, the old lady has been feeling stomach pain. She went to see Sun Qingshou at Renxin Hall several times, and every time she improved after taking medication, and in a few days, the pain started again. The old lady originally planned to go find Sun Qingshou to prescribe medicine. When passing by the market, she accidentally saw a small sticker from the Mid-Mountain Medical Center and learned the content of the sticker from onlookers. The old lady pondered that her old woman had a big belly, which Sun Qingshou couldn't cure. Isn't this a difficult and complicated disease? So she disregarded the obstruction of the girls around her and insisted on coming over to try her luck. When Shi Zhou gave the old lady a pulse, her eyebrows furrowed. No wonder Sun Qingshou dared not treat it. Years of malformed pregnancy had already stretched her organs to the limit. The old lady's eyes were dim, and she looked at Jin Youfu, who was making meatballs. "Miss, did you treat me? Isn't he Dr. Han?" Jin Youfu looked up in fear and said, "I'm not." Shi Zhou's face remained unchanged. "He is a patient in the hospital," he said. Jin Youfu went from being a doctor in the clinic to becoming a doctor's assistant on the spot. I'm a leg doctor." Tong Qingxin was blessed to the soul, pointing to the fool wrapped in gauze on his head, who was gnawing on a big carrot, and said, "I took him to see his head." The old lady stared at Jin Youfu's legs, overjoyed. This person's legs were as thick as pillars, and her belly was as big as a bucket. The Mid-Mountain Clinic specializes in treating difficult and complicated diseases. It seems that she has not come to the wrong place. Shi Zhou explained, "I am Dr. Han's disciple who closed the door. My name is Shi Zhou, and I was 3 years old when I was exposed to herbs. Over the years, I have collected rare and precious herbs from various mountains and rivers in the central and southern seas, and have seen many rare cases. I said I have 30 years of medical experience. Do you believe me?" The old lady laughed and said, "Look at the age of at most 16 or 17, where do you get 30 years of medical experience?" Shi Zhou also smiled and said, "I use the night as the day, breaking 1 year into 2 years. Isn't that enough?" The old lady was amused by her and said, "The little girl is really good at chatting. However, if you can treat your illness, your age doesn't matter." Shi Zhou withdrew his hand and said, "Madam, if I want to treat your illness, I need the person in charge of your family to come over." The woman was taken aback and said, "You still have to hire someone in charge to see a doctor." "Why?" Shi Zhou said, "This is the rule of the medical school." Jin Youfu saw the person walking away and gestured his belly with his hand. "Boss, she's so old, can you still have joy?" Shi Zhou laughed angrily and said, "Fortunately, your character today is an injured person. Otherwise, you would have to be killed in the hospital today." Jin Youfu sneered, "I'll just casually say it." Shi Zhou sighed and said, "In the future of the medical clinic, let's just die and see who can afford it." Jin Youfu wondered, "What's the cost?" Shi Zhou looked at him coldly and said, "If you exhaust me and the hospital goes bankrupt, you won't be able to tarnish Han Banshan's reputation in the future. If I exhaust you, I can still maintain Han Banshan's reputation in the future." Jin Youfu. In the evening, a large group of people suddenly arrived at the clinic. Jin Youfu thought that he had been treated badly by someone before, and that they had caused trouble. He quickly asked Tong Qingxin to help him and said he wanted to hide in the mountain. Unexpectedly, the old lady who inquired at noon returned and brought his family with her. At first glance, Shi Zhou saw the leader, who was the kind middle-aged man who had crossed shoulders with her yesterday at the government office. She immediately lifted her foot and welcomed her out. "Dr. Shi, I have brought everyone to you." Zhao took a step forward and said, "Are you Dr. Shi?" "I am the local Li Zheng Zhao, and I have an old acquaintance with Dr. Han. When I met him half a month ago, he was still in good spirits. I didn't expect that in the blink of an eye. Oh, Dr. Shi, by the way, let's pay our respects. Shi Zhou bowed back and said, I have seen Li Zheng before. Regarding my master's matter, it can only be said that life and death are uncertain. I can still think about it, but I was a bit regretful not to be able to see him for the last time. Zhao Li nodded and said, it would be great if you could think about it. Dr. Han did mention to me earlier that he wanted to entrust the medical clinic to someone who was trustworthy and asked me to take care of it more. However, when I was talking about Miss Han, how did she become Dr. Shi? Shi Zhou paused, what does this mean? End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Doctor Who Was Troubled by Doctors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The Doctor Who Was Troubled by Doctors. Zhao Li was stunned when he suddenly felt that his words had the suspicion of stirring up discord. He quickly explained, that was a long time ago, and Dr. Han said casually. It must be that Dr. Han had a new plan later on. Shi Zhou finally let go of his doubts and said, Master left me the Half Mountain Medical Center, and senior sister Kong Qing went to the Capital Medical Center. After a few pleasantries between the two, Zhao Lizheng finally explained his intention and said, I came here actually because of my aunt's illness. She said that the doctor can treat her illness. Shi Zhou pulled Zhao Tsong aside and said, Li Zheng, you are an old friend of my master. I dare not hide it from you. The old lady's situation is very dangerous. If she is lucky, she can last for another 3 months. If she is not lucky. Before she could finish speaking, Zhao Tsong's face changed. His parents had passed away early, and it was his aunt who raised him. As long as it could be cured, he would spare no effort. When Shi Zhou mentioned his condition, Zhao Tsong's eyes turned red at the time. It turns out she was pregnant with a third child back then, but one of them died prematurely in her belly. Dr. Shi, how should my aunt treat this disease? Shi Zhou replied, although teratoma is dead, over the years, small bones have grown into old bones. Medication can only relieve pain, and a cure requires surgery. Move the knife. Zhao Tsong dared not respond, just listening was frightening. Shi Zhou nodded and said, Li Zheng, the risk of this illness for the old lady is extremely high. If we really want to decide, we need the person in charge of the clan to sign as collateral, otherwise I won't dare to treat it. Zhen Youfu looked at the arguing Zhao family and asked anxiously, Master, even Sun Qingshou dare not cure it. Aren't you afraid of being sent to jail if it doesn't cure you? Shi Zhou said slowly, do you seek wealth and danger? I am now penniless, either starving to death or tortured to death in prison. I always have to choose a way to die. Besides, don't you still have to accompany me to jail? Zhen Youfu. In the morning, the sunshine was just right and there was plenty of light. Shi Zhou deliberately moved forward one day, covered it with a screen, and made a temporary compartment, ushering in the first difficult and complicated problem at the medical clinic. The water on the stove was steaming hot, and Shi Zhou put the knife he needed into it to cook. The old lady was starving all night and didn't even have a sip of water to drink. She knew she was gambling on a life and death game and looked very nervous. Dr. Shi, have you ever treated this disease before? When the boat paused, it was cured. How many have you treated? Are people still alive? Shi Zhou said, 5, 3 survived. The old lady's face turned a bit pale, and Shi Zhou said, the 2 who died were the hands of my master. My master said that my hands were steady and my heart was stable, and I had exceptional talent. I was born to be a good candidate for the role of an ulcer doctor, Yang, second tone, referring to a surgeon. The old lady suddenly felt relieved, and the effect of the boiling pill came into effect. The old lady quickly fell asleep. After an unknown amount of time, Shi Zhou walked out from behind the screen, covered in blood, as if he had just experienced a massacre. The Zhao family went crazy when they saw it. What about the old lady? What have you done to her? You can't be incurable, why don't you just kill someone? Oh my God, something big is going on. If my mother has any major issues, we'll take you to court. This girl just wanted someone to write a guarantee letter, but she just knew she couldn't cure herself and used the excuse of murder to cheat on medical fees. You despicable thing, tell me quickly. What's wrong with the old lady? At this moment, Tong Qingzhen walked out with a basin in his hand. There was something bloody inside the basin, like a spider with slender limbs and no head. He only had a fist-sized area where he had a lot of bloody hair, and there was also an eye without eyelids under his hair. Ah! The people seen on sight were immediately scared and ran around, and some even bent down to vomit. Zhao Zong repeatedly retreated and said, "Quick, take it away." Shi Zhou nodded and said, "The old lady's illness is caused by this thing." At night, the old lady showed no signs of waking up, and the Zhao family had a faint and chaotic demeanor. Zhen Youfu's eyebrows turned into 8 characters of worry. That's why I'm willing to become a quack doctor. They're probably discussing arresting you to see an official now. Shi Zhou dozed off and stared. Zhao Zong is a local official in the village. He has a significant voice in the Zhao family. Now it depends on whether he can calm down. Zhen Youfu asked cautiously, "Master, is the old lady still alive?" Shi Zhou said, "I'm still hanging my breath." Outside the clinic, the Zhao family members are becoming increasingly restless. I just said that girl is a scammer, so young. What medical skills does she know? How long has it been since she woke up? Zhao Zong, you killed your aunt. Do you deserve the ancestors of the Zhao family? She is a woman who is confused, and you are also confused. Thank you for being a scholar, thank you for being a righteous person. That's right, you believe in the words of petty people and killed your aunt. You're not afraid to have nightmares at night, and she came to ask for your life. Everyone criticizes Zhao Zong with every word you say, and even glares angrily at Shi Zhou who is making meatballs in the room. Zhao Zong was flustered in his heart, but his mouth was propped up as he said, "Treating the illness is my aunt's intention. My aunt hasn't woken up yet, so don't rush to make a conclusion." Zhao, the head of the Zhao family, shouted, "What does she know as a woman? Aren't you making up your mind? The first person to sign the guarantee letter is also your name. What should we do now? The clan chief is right, we must have that girl give the Zhao family an explanation. We need to avenge the old lady, quack doctors harm people, and kill to pay for our lives." Someone incited him nearby, while others forcibly dragged Zhao Zong outside to question him. In fact, they didn't let him interfere with other troublemakers. Someone took the opportunity to rush towards the clinic and said, "She killed the old lady, hit her." Shi Zhou was surrounded by people, and she quickly protected the needed meatballs, saying, Hey, there's something to say. Don't touch my medicine, it's all taken orally. Who has something to say to you? You've cured someone to death, and I'm still talking to you well. Give me a fight." Upon seeing this, Tong Qingzhen lifted a stool above his head and said, "What are you doing? Little brat, even if you want to become a hero, don't even consider your own identity, even beat him up." Ouch! Tong Qingzhen crouched on the ground with his head hugged. How could you do this? You started playing pranks before the ink on the guarantee letter was even dry. The Zhao family became angry and embarrassed when they heard a little brat say this. What are you? It's up to you, a little beast, to manage the affairs of the Zhao family. Shi Zhou hugged his head and dodged his fist. Alas, if you're like this, I'll have to report to the government. My guarantee letter in black and white is just to prevent you from acting rascal like this. The Zhao family is a wealthy family in the local area, and these people are not afraid at all. Report to the government. You report to the government, but don't even see what this place is. Playing tough with the Zhao family. You're not afraid. Zhao Zong was stopped outside and heard the commotion inside the clinic. He was half anxious and shouted outside, "Stop it all, what do you want to do? The crowd was passionate, and they all ignored Zhao Cong's voice. They even prepared the rope. Tie her up. At this moment, the fool who had been squatting in the corner suddenly rushed over, grabbed the half-eaten carrot in his hand, and fiercely stuffed it into the mouth of the person at the front. The person was immediately blindfolded and plunged into the ground, convulsing. When the others saw it, they were immediately frightened and retreated. My goodness, isn't this crazy person from the market? Shi Zhou immediately kicked the person's mouth, and the carrot that was stuck in his mouth was kicked away. The person's mouth was swollen at the time, but the person also slowed down and said, "Whoa! Zhao family. It's unclear whether the boat kicked or saved people." At this critical moment, a girl rushed out and shouted, "Chief, Li Zheng, the old lady is awake." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The Doctor Who Almost Was Robbed for Marriage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The Doctor Who Almost Was Robbed for Marriage. The noisy crowd instantly fell silent like a chicken, and those who were about to tie someone up froze in place. Shi Zhou looked up and said, "Do you still tie it up?" Everyone. The old lady was moved to the only patient room, feeling very weak. "It's really embarrassing for the Zhao family. Zhao Cong and the clan chief signed a guarantee to prevent you bastards from causing trouble and misleading people. Grandma, how can we be considered troublemakers and corrupt people? She treats people to a point where life and death are unknown, and still refuses to ask." The old lady spoke in a tone of hatred towards the iron and the steel. "I clearly had something to say first. It's my fate to be cured, and I won't implicate Dr. Shi. You turn my words in the ear and cause trouble and hit people in the clinic. Isn't that true? Are you trying to make people feel that the Zhao family's words are untrustworthy, and that the things signed by the clan chief and Li Zheng are not counted? Are you trying to make people despise the Zhao family for being untrustworthy?" "Mom, that's not what we mean." The old lady gritted her teeth and said, "If you still recognize me as an old lady. The Zhao family, we should all kneel outside and not get up until we kneel for 2 hours." So, on the empty space in front of the halfway mountain clinic, people knelt down with a crash. The fool performed outstandingly and was rewarded with a pancake, hiding in a corner and happily nibbling on it. Shi Zhou and Jin Youfu kneaded meatballs together. Tong Qingzhen struggled to tidy up the messy room with a swollen face and a blue nose. Shi Zhou began to curse and criticize, "Your face is so swollen that you don't know how to find medicine to apply it. It wasn't me who did it." Pointing at me and feeling heartbroken. "Just now, you were so capable of rushing forward. Now, what kind of sad face are you pretending to have?" Jin Youfu added fuel and vinegar and said, "Isn't it quite cool? You're pretending to be a grandchild now. Where did you go with your arrogance just now? You're charging forward with everything. The Zhao family is a wealthy family, what are you?" The Zhao family outside felt ashamed and dared not speak up even if they were angry. Zhao Cong was scolded by the old lady, and he was extremely prestigious in the family. Even the clan leader would respect him 3 times, but today at a critical moment, he did not stop the troublemaking Zhao family. Zhao Cong felt ashamed and said, "Dr. Shi, Zhao is ashamed. I apologize to you. You finally saved your aunt's illness, but we indiscriminately injured and smashed her. Zhao Cong lifted the hem of his clothes and was about to kneel down for Shi Zhou. "Dr. Shi, please accept Zhao's kneeling. Firstly, thank you for saving his aunt's life, and secondly, apologize for Zhao's incompetence." Shi Zhou reached out and picked up Zhao Kong. "Li Zheng, you are an elder. How dare I accept your kneeling?" Everyone is worried about the old lady, and with the excitement of the crowd, they act impulsively. It's normal for people to act impulsively, and I can understand. Shi Zhou showed a very magnanimous attitude and a completely indifferent attitude, which further embarrassed Zhao Kong. "By the way, how much is the diagnosis fee?" Shi Zhou said, I have a friendship with my master. I'll give you a 50% discount, 10 taels of silver. Zhao Zong paused as he paid, with a slight invisible pull at the corner of his mouth. He knew the danger was difficult to cure, but he didn't expect it to be so expensive. Zhao Lijian quickly recovered as usual and nodded, my aunt's life is not limited to 10 or 20 taels. The doctor at that time collected 10 taels of silver, it's not expensive. As a result, Shi Zhou reached out and held Zhao Zong's hand, saying, Li Zheng, what we just talked about was medical expenses. Now let's talk about human relations. Zhao Zong looked up in confusion and said, human feelings. Shi Zhou continued, I have made a great wish since I was young to help the world by hanging a teapot. I am willing to use what I have learned throughout my life to save the sick. Before I left the mountain, my master repeatedly reminded me that doctors are not immortals and cannot cure the disease. I have been feeling anxious inside. I came to your place for the first time, and the old lady was in a dangerous condition. It was Li Zhang and several clan elders who joined forces to guarantee me, giving me great confidence to stand here. Zhao Zong was very moved at this moment, even feeling guilty for the slight displeasure he had just felt in his heart. Dr. Shi, please rest assured that if you encounter any difficulties here in the future, Zhao will not refuse. Human kindness is human kindness, and this medical fee must be collected. Shi Zhou said, I am the benefactor of my medical career, and the old lady is my first patient to come to the clinic. I don't talk about money, only about love. My clinic is in a state of disrepair, and neither Li Zheng nor the old lady despise it. Before Shi Zhou could finish speaking, Zhao Zong immediately said, Dr. Shi is so passionate and righteous, and Zhao deeply admires him. The damage to the hospital is something that my Zhao family owes you. The repair of the hospital is up to me. Shi Zhou said, I can't use it inside. Zhao Lijian. That's settled. In remote areas, there is no shortage of craftsmen and bricklayers. No matter how good their skills are, they cannot be worth 10 taels of silver. It is ultimately the Zhao family that has taken advantage of them. After the Zhao clan dispersed, only the maids were left to serve the old lady, and the clinic finally returned to peace. Zhen Youfu sneered privately, Master, are you really confiscating a penny? Shi Zhouzhan shrugged and said, there's nothing we can do. The Half-Mountain Medical Center happens to be under Zhao Zong's jurisdiction. I don't have any background or backstage, and I don't have the money to manage it. I've received a great favor this time, so it's easy to handle things in the future. Besides, they even agreed to repair the medical center. Besides, the medical fee can be waived, and they're sorry they won't give me the Chinese medicine for subsequent conditioning. Zhen Youfu. On the third day after Shi Zhou arrived at the clinic at noon, while filling out the consultation record, he saw Tong Qingzhen running in panic and saying, the boss is not doing well, Zhao Xiaowu is here again. Shi Zhou looked up and said, oh my, it's been 3 days now. I almost forgot about this one. Let's go, take a look. Zhao Xiaowu stood at the door with more than 10 people, followed by 2 old men and about 10 servants. Seeing that Shi Zhou was still the same as before, Zhao Xiaowu frowned and said, didn't I ask you to tidy up? Why are you still looking shabby? Do you know for sure? Before Shi Zhou could speak, Zhao Xiaowu turned to the 2 old men and said, from today on, you 2 will be sitting in the clinic for treatment. I will have someone renovate it later, and I will have someone take away the clinic's payment for the day. Tong Qingzhen followed behind Shi Zhou, while Zhao Xiaowu frowned and said, why are there other people in the clinic? Drive them all out. Shi Zhou. No, they really plan on openly robbing. Shi Zhou couldn't help but say, young Master Zhao, you want to put the doctor you hired in my clinic. Shouldn't you ask for my opinion first? Zhao Xiaowu walked up to the boat and reached out to lift her chin, saying proudly, you are all my people now, and the clinic is naturally mine. You just need to enjoy your peace and fortune at home in the future, and leave the matter of showing your face to me. Shi Zhou let go of his shoulder and avoided Zhao Xiaowu's hand. Did you think about it, young Master Zhao? Zhao Xiaowu was quite proud and said, that's natural. Zhao has always been kind and naturally won't treat my people unfairly. I have found all the people sitting in this restaurant for you. You just need to stay in the backyard with peace of mind. Shi Zhou. Zhao Xiaowu's close servant chimed in, that's right, young lady, just obediently follow me. Our young master has great abilities. If you taste it, I'm sure you'll be in a panic if you don't see him for a day. As soon as the close servant spoke, the person behind Zhao Xiaowu burst into a flirtatious laugh and said, ha ha ha. Zhao Gongzi stole incense from the chamber and stayed overnight with 7 people. His reputation is well known. If you are favored by him, it is a blessing from a previous life. Just say, your luck is good. When you meet Mr. Zhao, I don't know how many women outside are crying and shouting about wanting to marry him. After tonight, you will know my young master's majestic demeanor. In the future, I look forward to his return night and night, and I don't even want to be an immortal for you. These people speak recklessly, and you can tell at a glance that they often do unethical things. Tong Qingzhen blushed with anger and his neck was thick, so he couldn't help but jump up and say, don't talk nonsense in front of my boss. He never said he wanted to go back with you. Zhao Xiaowu slapped Tong's honest face and said, a little beast with not even grown hair. It's your turn to talk. How dare you shout at the young master? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. When the doctor is angry without hitting people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. When the doctor is angry without hitting people, Tong Qingzhen covered his face and tears welled up as he said, you bully people. Zhao Xiaowu laughed heartily and said, you're the one bullying me. Is there a place for you to talk here? Get lost. Tong Qingzhen was really young and scared, so he just covered his face and sobbed. Shi Zhou lowered his eyes and looked at Tong Qingzhen, please stand up for me. Tong stood up sobbing, with a big slap on his face. Shi Zhou said, go over, shine on his face, fight back. Upon hearing this, Zhao Xiaowu suddenly became energized and said, fight back. Ha ha ha, you all heard me, right? Do you still want this little beast to hit me? Ha ha ha. Zhao Xiaowu clapped his hands and laughed, it's interesting, it's really interesting. Come on, hit me in the face, hit me. Tong Qingzhen was frightened by Zhao Xiaowu's forced pig face and stepped back step by step, not daring to hit him. The more he was afraid, the more proud Zhao Xiaowu became. He took the initiative to put his face in front of Tong Qingzhen, slapped his face with his hand, and made a slap sound, fight. The young master gave you a fight, why don't you fight? If you don't fight even when he sends it to you, are you a fool? Tong Qingzhen was pushed back by Zhao Xiaowu, crying more and more fiercely, and he dared not fight. Shi Zhou narrowed his eyes with a cold expression and said, Tong, be honest. If you don't fight back today, the clinic won't want you. Whether you live or die in the future has nothing to do with me. There won't be any losers around me. Tong Qingzhen stepped back, stopped for a moment, and he looked at Shi Zhou in shock. Boss. Shi Zhou remained expressionless and only said, either fight or roll, you choose one. Tong Qingzhen trembled all over, boss, I. Zhao Xiaowu covered his stomach and burst out laughing wildly, almost rolling on the ground. I've never met anyone who dares to touch me before, young master. Today, I'm going to see who dares to touch a strand of my hair. Before Zhao Xiaowu could finish speaking, Tong's honest hand slapped him hard. Pa. Tong Qingzhen is not very old, but he does physical work in the clinic every day, collecting herbs, chopping firewood up the mountain, and carrying firewood down the mountain. His arms are very strong. With this slap, Zhao Xiaowu was immediately struck with stars in his eyes and sat down on the ground. Zhao Xiaowu sat on the ground with his face covered in disbelief, looking at Tong Qingjun and saying, "Little beast, how dare you dare to hit me." Tong Qingjun's face turned a bit pale, and his hands were still trembling slightly. You hit me, I'll hit you." Zhao Xiaowu got up and roared at the thug behind him, "Are you all dead? What are you still doing? Give me a fight. Give me a fight. I want to chop them off." Zhen Youfu moved his legs and carefully leaned over the door to look outside. Seeing this situation, he was immediately scared out of his wits and reached out to close the door. When did Zhao Xiaowu suffer such a loss? Does Tong honestly not want to live anymore? After playing, I'm afraid this clinic will be abandoned. Just as he was thinking about it, he saw a servant rushing towards Tong Qingjun and saying, "Little beast, you're looking for death." Shi Zhou quickly reached out and pulled Tong Qingjun to the back. The servant's leg tripped on Tong Qingjun's leg, causing him to fall and bite feces on the spot. Zhao Xiaowu cursed, "Waste, they are all a group of waste," he said, grabbing the stick from the servant beside him and charging towards Shi Zhou and Tong Qingjun, "I'll kill you." Shi Zhou reached out and pushed Tong Qingjun, who stumbled and fell behind him. Shi Zhou stood in front of Tong Qingjun, subconsciously protecting his head. Seeking death. Zhao Xiaowu lifted his stick and smashed it at Shi Zhou's head. The stick was held up in mid-air without swinging, but when he turned around, he saw an additional wall behind him. The fool firmly grasped the stick and looked at him from a high position. Before Zhao Xiaowu could react, the fool suddenly stuffed something into Zhao Xiaowu's mouth and said, "Eat." Zhao Xiaowu struggled. The fool's hand loosened, and Zhao Xiaowu plopped to the ground, desperately pulling out the broken stones from his mouth. The corners of his mouth were all cracked, and his mouth was covered in blood. "I'm dead, you're dead." The fool glared fiercely at Zhao Xiaowu, very angry. Zhao Xiaowu covered his mouth with blood and got up, pointing at Shi Zhou and roaring, "Let's go together and tie everyone here back to me. I'll sell her into a kiln and let her ride 1,000 people to sleep. We can't survive, we can't die." Shi Zhou was shocked and pointed at the fool, saying, "You have a head full of grievances and a debt owner. He stuffed your mouth full. What are you looking for me for?" The fool looked bewildered and grabbed the stick, playing with it on the ground. Zhao Xiaowu's face was grim and he was so angry that he went crazy. "This kid is a fool. How could he do it without you instructing him? Today, I will let you know who you offended." Shi Zhou squinted at the position of the sun and sighed, "Zhao Gongzi, you brought someone to my clinic to cause trouble. It's clear that you offended me, how could it be that I offended you?" Zhao Xiaowu angrily said, "You ignorant slut, I will make you regret living in this world. What are you still waiting for? Give me a hand, give me a fight, give me a smash, go up and kill them together." At this moment, a sharp shout came, "I see who dares." Tong Qingjun turned around and exclaimed in surprise, "Master, it's Zhao Li who is here. He's Zhao Xiaowu's uncle." Shi Zhou's face remained unchanged when he saw Zhao Tsong rushing over and slapping Zhao Xiaowu in the face, "Bastard." Shi Zhou took the opportunity to drive away the fool and had to let him hide. At this time, the fewer people in the clinic, the more pitiful it became. The fool looked tall and powerful, and he looked too fighting. Zhao Xiaowu was slapped off his front teeth by Zhao Tsong, sitting on the ground with blood all over his face. He looked up at Zhao Tsong and said, "Uncle. Why did you come? Why did you hit me?" Zhao Tsong angrily said, "Why did I hit you? Don't you know in your heart? You're so brave. Your grandmother has such a serious illness, and you didn't even show your face. How dare you come to the clinic to cause trouble? Do you still have family rules and laws in your eyes?" Zhao Xiaowu pointed at Shi Zhou and cursed angrily, "Uncle, you don't know. It's all this slut's fault. How dare she let this little beast hit me? Uncle, Quickly have someone lock her up and use her punishment to go to jail. Let her survive but not die. Before Zhao Xiaowu could finish speaking, Zhao Cong slapped another bus and said, "Stop it. Do you think the government's prison is run by your family? If you want to, go down." Zhao Xiaowu was completely confused. Uncle has always loved him, why did he keep hitting him today? Uncle. Have you been tempted by a slut? This slut. You shut up. Zhao Cong shouted, "Do you dare to talk nonsense again?" Zhao Xiaowu finally dared not speak up. Zhao Cong turned to look at Shi Zhou and said, "Dr. Shi, this kid is my nephew and also the eldest grandson of my aunt. He has been favored by his parents since childhood, which has led him to develop an unruly personality. I will take him back and let his parents discipline him. I hope Dr. Shi doesn't follow the wicked and argue with him." The eldest son and grandson of a large family are mostly favored, but they also bear the heavy responsibility of the family's prosperity. Zhao Xiaowu was doted on by the powerful mother in the family. Shi Zhou looked surprised and said, "So this young master is Zhao Cong's nephew? That's really wrong. Honestly, why don't you come over and apologize to young Master Zhao?" End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Mother and Son Who Are Full of Cunning Words. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The mother and son who are full of cunning words. Shi Zhou pulled Tong Qingzhen over and showed the obvious slap mark on his face to Zhao Lizheng. "Lizheng, just now I was angry and asked Tong Qingzhen to slap Zhao Gongzi. I don't know if it hurt," he said. Zhao Cong looked at the slap mark on Tong Qingzhen's face and was surprised. "No, this is." Shi Zhou waved his hand generously and said, "It's okay, Tong is tough and rough-skinned, but he just got slapped by Prince Zhao. If it doesn't matter, he's just a rural child and can't compare to Prince Zhao's wealth." Zhao Cong's mind went blank, and he turned around and slapped Zhao Xiaowu again. "Can you even deal with such a small child? Are you still human?" Zhao Cong wanted to call again when he heard a woman's voice say, "His uncle." Zhao Cong turned around and didn't hesitate. "Sister-in-law. Are you taking care of your aunt today?" The woman who ran out said Qian. She is Zhao Xiaowu's biological mother and also the eldest daughter-in-law of the old lady. For the convenience of observing the wound and changing dressing in a timely manner, Shi Zhou has been staying in the hospital for the old lady. The person on duty today is Qian Shi. Seeing her son's face covered in blood, Qian felt heartbroken and said, "Xiao Wu, how did you get beaten up like this?" Zhao Xiaowu's front teeth fell out and his words leaked, "Geese, they all have 7 or 5 nests, uncle, they all have nests." Qian couldn't understand, but even guessed and guessed. She lowered her face and said, "Uncle, how could you use your hand to fight Xiao Wu? Although we are a family, his father and I are all here, so it's not uncle's turn to teach him a lesson, right? He's your own nephew, and even a big mistake can't be to hit him." Zhao Cong was questioned by the Qian family and his face looked a bit unpleasant. "My younger siblings have been inside just now. Xiao Wu brought people to the clinic to cause trouble. Why didn't you come out to dissuade them?" Qian said, "Uncle, just blame Xiao Wu. Why don't you ask why?" Zhao Cong frowned and said, "There's no reason why he came to the clinic to cause trouble and hit people." Qian said, "I just heard that Xiao Wu likes Dr. Shi. He came today to bring Dr. Shi back to the Zhao family and live a good life. Dr. Shi is a delicate and weak little girl. What can she do in such a place? Women always have to get married, and Xiao Wu likes her. In the future, she will have Xiao Wu take care of her, so she won't have to worry about it for the rest of her life. Our Zhao family is also considered prestigious in the local area, and we can trust her to take care of the elderly's health. She will have someone to take care of her for the rest of her life, so what's wrong with a win-win situation?" A big question mark popped out of Shi Zhou's head. Was it all arranged for her to stop and stop clearly? Zhao Cong couldn't believe it a bit. "Sisters, are you serious?" Qianshi said to Zhao Zong, why not take it seriously? Xiaowu is grateful that Dr. Shi saved his mother's life and wants to give her a place to rely on. You see, all the doctors in the restaurant have been found, and he doesn't want her to pay a penny. Xiaowu always thinks for Dr. Shi and genuinely likes him. Zhao Xiaowu nodded beside him and said, chop. As Qian spoke, she affectionately took Shi Zhou's hand, as if she was already in Zhao Xiaowu's room. Dr. Shi, you can rest assured to follow Xiaowu from now on. Who dares to bully you? I'll support you and get along well with your mother.in.law and daughter.in.law in the future. Tong Qingzhen angrily said, who doesn't know that Zhao Gongzi has one wife and 2 concubines, who are you trying to deceive? Qian gritted his teeth and said, do you want to talk too much? Although Xiaowu has a legitimate wife, how can new people attract Xiaowu to like him? He must be the one who loves Dr. Shi the most. Zhao Xiaowu agreed, uncle is dead. Shi Zhou. Zhao Zong couldn't bear to listen anymore. Sisters and sisters, if Xiaowu really likes it, he should seek the consent of Dr. Shi. Without a matchmaker or hiring someone to come and rob someone, if he can't take it away, he can start hitting someone. Is it decent? Tong Qingzhen angrily said, my boss has a medical clinic nearby, with medical skills in hand, and we servants taking care of him. What do you need to worry about? My boss is a doctor who saves the world and is a divine doctor. Why should he be your son's concubine? Dream. Tong Qingzhen slapped Zhao Xiaowu, suddenly making him feel that Zhao Xiaowu was just like that. He swollen his face and even slapped his butt. Qian gritted his silver teeth and cursed, you little beast with not even a single hair growing. What do you know? It's so easy to make money. This clinic has been ruined like this, how can there be any patients? I'm all doing it for Dr. Shi's good. Tong Qingzhen was furious and said, Master, don't listen to her nonsense. Shi Zhou glanced at Tong Qingzhen, nodded at him, and then asked Zhao Zong, Li Zheng, I'm new here. May I ask if the local wedding customs are different from other places? Zhao Zong's face was both embarrassed and ashamed. It's no different, why did Dr. Shi ask that? Shi Zhou sighed and said, Zhao Gongzi said that he Ergong has an engagement with senior sister Kong Qing, but he transferred the engagement letter to him. I am the heir of the medical school, which means I have an engagement with him. I don't understand the local customs, but the first time I heard about the transfer of the engagement letter, Prince Xiao was straightforward and resolute, as if he had obtained the law to arrest me. I just wanted to figure it out. Zhao Zong's face turned purple and he was so angry that his hands trembled. There's no such thing. Qian muttered discontentedly, I'm also thinking about my mother's health. This is such a big clinic. At this moment, Zhao Zong realized the purpose of the Qian family. It turned out that she thought her son had a large number of people and could easily snatch them away. It was best to cook the raw rice until it was ripe, so she deliberately hid and couldn't come out. Her heart was scheming for someone else's clinic. If he hadn't arrived in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Jin Youfu leaned on his cane and moved to the door. I can't bear to listen anymore, I'm just deceiving others too much. Just as the doctor cured your old lady's illness, did you turn around and start thinking about a medical clinic? Shi Zhou felt that Jin Youfu had some conscience. She thought that in Jin Youfu's eyes, there was only his 251 monthly salary. Zhao Zong's face turned red with embarrassment, and Jin Youfu continued, although Dr. Shi has an ordinary appearance, she has the great wish of hanging a teapot to help the world. She is a rare and extraordinary woman in the world. Zhao Gongzi has many wives and concubines in his family. Who do you want to harm? You can also speak up. Shi Zhou. Why is she just plain looking? Why do you just look average? She is doing this for the convenience of medical treatment. She must be dressed up as a beautiful woman. Qian was unwilling and said, what's the use of having grand aspirations as a woman? She won't be able to get married and have children in the future. Zhao Zong knew he couldn't let Qian talk nonsense anymore. Shi Zhou was Auntie's life-saving benefactor. Auntie had not yet returned home, and the news that Shi Zhou had cured the stubborn illness of the old lady of the Zhao family for many years had already spread. How many people were waiting to see if Auntie would recover? If people knew what they had done, they wouldn't poke the Zhao family's spine and curse. Sisters and sisters, Xiaowu is not sensible. Why do you also meddle in it blindly? Can a marriage contract be transferred? How dare you tolerate such things? End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Boss, fools seem to be useful. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Boss, fools seem to be useful. Qian was already feeling guilty, but when she saw Zhao Zongjin getting angry, she just stood aside and chatted. Zhao Zong asked coldly, "Where is the engagement letter?" Zhao Xiaowu reluctantly took out the engagement letter and gave it to Zhao Kong. Zhao Zong looked at it and said, "I've seen Dr. Han's handwriting before. Who did you ask to copy this bullshit?" Zhao Xiaowu was repeatedly asked before he could tell the truth. It turned out that he had forced the old man who wrote letters on the street to copy it. Zhao Zong was so angry that he tore it apart and said, "Dr. Shi is a great benefactor of our Zhao family. He has a debt of gratitude that he will never repay in his lifetime. Whoever dares to trouble the clinic again in the future will just have trouble with me, Zhao Kong." Neither Zhao Xiaowu nor Qian dared to speak up. Zhao Zong looked at Shi Zhou and said, "Dr. Shi, just face a farce and I will give you an explanation." Shi Zhou saluted, "Thank you very much, Li Zheng." What else did Qian want to say? Zhao Zong ignored her and turned to see the old lady. Zhao Xiaowu stared angrily at Shi Zhou's back. This slut dared to use an uncle to suppress him, wait and see, humph. Qian tugged at his son and said, "Xiao Wu, don't make your uncle angry. The emperor is high in the mountains, and no one knows the high-ranking officials in small areas. Only small officials are related to the vital interests of the people. Whoever sees Zhao Zong does not speak up and is honest. The Zhao family has the most prestige in the local area because of the presence of Zhao Zong, a township official." Zhao Xiaowu said, "Wolf, nose, was eyes are full of wealth." Qian couldn't understand and was worried about Zhao Xiaowu's teeth. Seeing him staring at Shi Zhou's back, he covered his mouth with a handkerchief and said, "Son, if you really have a way to subdue that girl, my mother will follow your wishes." Zhao Xiaowu's eyes couldn't help but show a fierce expression. Wolf Jie doesn't support Goose, Goose doesn't call Wolf death. He glanced at Tong Qingjin's back again, and even this little beast dared to hit him. He would never let him go. When the time came, he would break his limbs and throw him into the wild to feed the dog. In the afternoon, the Zhao family sent 500 yuan to the hospital, of which 200 yuan was for Tong Qingjin's medical expenses. The remaining money was known to be compensation for the Zhao family's damage to the hospital. Tong Qingjin was timid and didn't dare to take it, so Shi Zhou took it for him. As a result, Tong Qingjin took the money and turned around to buy rice, noodles, and meat from the hunter's house. Jin Youfu felt fortunate and said, "Thanks to Zhao Li's timely arrival, otherwise the medical clinic would have been over." He packed all the packages he had run away, but they didn't come in handy. Shi Zhou glanced at the room behind him and said, "When I went to the government office to handle affairs, I met Zhao Lizheng and heard him mention the old lady's illness to someone. When the old lady appeared at the clinic with a big belly, Shi Zhou had a guess at the time. Jin Youfu said that Zhao Xiaowu's family is a local aristocrat and no one dares to control them in the village, indicating that someone behind him is doing a mess for him. The result confirmed Shi Zhou's speculation that Zhao Xiaowu was Zhao Zong's nephew and the old lady was Zhao Zong's aunt. The more complex and closely their relationship became, the more they were involved, and the better Zhao Xiaowu would handle the matter of robbing the hospital. As long as the old lady is around, Zhao Lizheng, a well-known person, will come to visit. Shi Zhou has already recorded his time of absence, and anything he says will drag Zhao Xiaowu until Zhao Lizheng arrives. With Zhao Lizheng's words, Zhao Xiaowu would never dare to cause trouble in the clinic again. The old lady stayed in the hospital for 5 days, her spirit gradually improved, and her appetite also improved. After observing, Shi Zhou finally let the old lady go home to recover from her injuries. Before leaving, Shi Zhou prescribed a lot of medicine for the old lady and collected the money. The old lady lay on the flatbed and said to Zhao Zhong, it's a blessing for our fellow villagers that Dr. Shi came to our place to sit at the museum. It's not easy for her to be a little girl, so you must take good care of her. Zhao Zhong nodded and said, I will. I promised Dr. Shi to help her repair the clinic, but Dr. Shi is very careful and worried about disturbing your rest, so he hasn't started work yet. After the old lady and her family left, Shi Zhou sat in the hall, staring at the fool who was nibbling on carrots against the corner of the wall. Jin Youfu and Tong Qingzhen also leaned in and said, Master, this fool seems to be useful. Shi Zhou hugged his arm and said, What do you mean? Jin Youfu said, Everyone says he knows how to hit people, but he hasn't hit us before when he comes to the clinic, and he's also honest in living in a firewood room. Apart from his love for stealing food, he doesn't have any major problems. Tong Qingqing agreed, You also helped us fight against the Zhao family. The fool was stared at by 6 eyes, gnawing on the radish and turning around with his back to them, nibbling cautiously. Shi Zhou helped his forehead and said, Since everyone has no objections, let's keep him. But he's too dirty and still has a strange smell. Honestly, you can mop his backyard and wash it later. Tong Qingqing happily agreed, Foolish brother, this will be your home from now on. After lunch, Tong Zhen boiled water to give the fool a bath. Not long after, Tong honestly ran out and said angrily and wrongfully, Boss, I don't want to give him a bath anymore. Can you wash him instead? Shi Zhou widened his eyes, wishing he could strip off his clothes on the spot and let this honest child see clearly. She is really a woman. Although a fool is a fool, his size and physique make him look like an adult. Tong Qingzhen was so angry that he wiped away his tears. The fool is 3 years old this year, and I am 9 years old, but I am not half as powerful as him. It's so bullying. Woo-woo. Shi Zhou roared, Do you think he looks like he's 3 years old? Jin Youfu glanced at Shi Zhou and gritted his teeth, scolding Tong Qingzhen, What nonsense are you talking about in front of your boss? When you grow up, it will be spectacular. Really, Shi Zhou looked up at the sky, her eyes straight. What did she hear so much? However, does a fool think he is 3 years old? Tong Qingzhen was driven away to continue bathing the fool, and the commotion in the backyard was like a war. After an unknown amount of time, Tong honestly returned and said, After washing, I changed the water twice, and the water was all black. I asked him to use up all the only shower beans. But my boss, it seems to be worth it. Shi Zhou was taken aback for a moment, was it worth it? What is worth it? Then, she saw a handsome man with loose hair walking out, with phoenix eyes and heavy eyelashes, flowing eyes, and a face so beautiful that it was indistinguishable between male and female. Coupled with his extremely tall stature, it was unexpected not to feel out of place. He wore Jin Youfu's largest shirt and it was a bit short, but the fool didn't know for sure and thought he was fragrant and pretty. Shi Zhou and Jin Youfu stared at the fool together, no wonder Tong was honestly worth it. With this face, it was really worth it. Upon seeing their reaction, Tong honestly felt a strong sense of achievement, and it took him a lot of effort to clean it up. Shi Zhou stood up with one bone, circling around the fool. We need to buy clothes for the fool, maybe we can find a wife for him in the future, he said. Although he is a fool, he has a face and everything, and he may be favored by a wealthy widow who only looks at his face. At this moment, a question suddenly came from outside, Is there anyone in the clinic? I heard that your mid-mountain clinic specializes in treating large stomachs. A single sentence confused the people in the medical clinic, but Shi Zhou's reaction was the fastest. Half Mountain Medical Clinic specializes in treating difficult and complicated diseases. As Shi Zhou arrived at the door, a figure plopped and knelt in front of her, shouting, "Oh my mother!" End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Disobedient Patients. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Disobedient Patients. Both sides were startled by this kneeling. At half-mast, Zhen Youfu's voice rang out quietly beside him, "Master, when did you take in a godson?" Shi Zhou. The person who fell was a chubby man, and with the help of two strong men, he finally stood up from the ground. He gasped for breath and explained, I just fell." Shi Zhou glanced at him, his face flushed and plump to the point of swelling. The woman behind the man is slightly better than him, but she walks faster and her flesh shakes 3 times at a time. 2 heavyweight figures came down from the clinic. Zhu Han took the handkerchief handed to him by his wife Yuan and wiped his sweat, complaining, "Doctor, why is your medical clinic located halfway up the mountain? I climbed up all the way and it's exhausting." Yuan, on the other hand, fanned the hospital with a handkerchief and looked disdainfully at it. "Master, this is really a hospital. How could it be broken down like this? It doesn't look very reliable. Have we been fooled by someone?" she said. At this moment, Shi Zhou stepped forward and said, "Hello, sir and madam. My name is Shi Zhou and I am a doctor from the hospital. Who of you wants to see me?" Yuan glanced at Shi Zhou and said, "Are you a doctor? Are you so young? Do you know how to see a doctor?" Shi Zhou sincerely said, "I can see." Zhu Han complained of severe dizziness. He had been taking medication for several years, and his condition fluctuated from good to bad. In the past year, his condition had worsened. He took the medication prescribed by Sun Xingshou, which initially proved effective, but later lost its effectiveness. In the past few days, I heard that the new doctor from the Half Mountain Medical Center is skilled in medicine and has cured Mrs. Zhao's stubborn illness for decades. Zhu Han decided to come and try his luck. Shi Zhou listened while recording, and also sounded the pulse for Zhu Han. Zhu Han had a fat wrist and tried several times, but it was easy for her to feel the pulse. Shi Zhou withdrew his hand, his face stern, and quickly took the silver needle over. "Master Zhu, your qi and blood stasis are very serious. Fortunately, you came in time, otherwise something big would have happened." "Ah. So serious." Zhu Han felt that apart from dizziness, there was nothing else wrong with him. Zhu Han lay down and was quickly pricked into a hedgehog by Shi Zhou, afraid to move. Yuan Shi was a bit unhappy after hearing this. What did this little girl say? It's just dizziness. What big deal could happen? How could she feel that this little girl's words are so alarmist? After a stick of incense, Shi Zhou pulled out the needle and Zhu Han sat up. He shook his head and suddenly found that his head was refreshed. "Oh my mother, Dr. Shi, this needle is more effective than taking medicine. I feel much refreshed now, but I don't feel dizzy anymore." Yuan Shi reminded beside him, "Previously, you took the medicine prescribed by Sun Qingshou of Renqin Hall, didn't you do the same? It's all good at the beginning, but it won't work in the future." Shi Zhou nodded and said, "Mr. Zhu's current feeling of comfort is only temporary. To treat dizziness, long-term physical therapy is necessary. Most importantly, Mr. Zhu, your current condition is very dangerous. You must stay in the hospital tonight and have someone around to guard you." Yuan just realized that this doctor likes to exaggerate and his words are more and more frightening. "What do I mean by you? My master is good, are you cursing him? Are you used to living in this rundown place? It's really funny. We don't make money like you do." Zhu Han didn't feel unhappy because after getting his needle inserted, he didn't feel dizzy. However, Madam is right. He is not willing to live outside, and the most comfortable place is at his own home. Dr. Shi, you don't need to stay at the clinic anymore. I really can't stand living outside. I'll come and see you for an injection in a few days. Zhu Han generously paid for acupuncture and moxibustion, and raised his foot with yuan Shi. Shi Zhou didn't even count his money, so he lifted his foot and chased after him. Master Zhu, your pulse is turbid, your strings are tight, your hands are touching, and your skin is burning. This is a sign of young hyperactivity, high blood pressure, and you cannot leave. Zhu Han and his wife were unwilling to listen, only feeling that her incessant chatter was very annoying. Dr. Shi, I have my own body and my own mind, so don't worry about me anymore. Zhu Han feels that he has been doing well for so long, how come after arriving at this clinic, he is about to die of illness? Could it be that this young doctor's medical skills were the result of her deceiving the Zhou family and creating a reputation? Zhu Han has been consciously engaged in business for many years and has seen everyone. Most likely, this young girl worsened the patient's condition through language, making them afraid and cooperating with diagnosis and treatment. This way, she can earn both medical and medical expenses. If it weren't for the fact that she felt comfortable after getting the needle, Zhu Han would have thought she was a fraud. Fortunately, she still had the real ability to get the needle done. Yuan glanced back, pursed her lips and deliberately said, Dr. Shi, there's no need to send it. The sweat on Shi Zhou's forehead came down urgently. Master Zhu, just listen to my advice. Zhu Han was a bit impatient and said perfunctorily, I didn't bring anything today. It's not too late for me to come back tomorrow after packing up my clothes. You go back. No, you really can't leave. If you leave, in case you're in danger at home, no one can save you. Shi Zhou chased him and said, Master Zhu, your face is flushed now and you're walking down the mountain. If you're short of breath in the future, you'll lose your breath. When the time comes. Yuan couldn't bear it anymore. Zhu Si, please stop Dr. Shi. Don't tire her, let's take a step first. Upon hearing this, Zhu Han's attendant turned around and reached out to stop Shi Zhou, saying, Dr. Shi, please go back. No. Impatience flashed on Zhu Si's face as he pushed the person back hard, please go back. Zhu Han wiped the sweat off his forehead and said, Oh my mother, it's really. Shi Zhou fell to the ground and watched as they walked away. At half-mast, Shi Zhou returned to the hall dejected and silently released the consultation record. The people in the clinic noticed that Shi Zhou's expression was not right, and everyone was very sensible and remained silent. For a moment, the atmosphere in the clinic was a bit dull, and even the fool lowered the sound of gnawing on the radish with a keen expression. During dinner, Zhen Youfu comforted and said, Master, don't take it to heart either. Dr. Han once said that it's difficult for the king of hell to save a damn ghost. If some people are destined for their lives, no one can save them. Shi Zhou glanced at Zhen Youfu and said, the key is that I can save him. Unfortunately, the other party doesn't believe it, which is the weakest point of Shi Zhou. If she can't save it, it's in the other person's life, but even though she can save it, the other person won't give her a chance. After dinner, Shi Zhou checked the medicinal herbs in the pharmacy and listed common diseases among local villagers based on the records in the consultation record, adding medicinal herbs according to the types of diseases. There's no way, I don't have the money now, so I can only add necessary medicinal herbs instead of matching all common herbs. Suddenly, heavy footsteps came from outside the door, and a man rushed into the clinic. With a thud, he knelt on the ground and said, Doctor Shi, help me, please help my master. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Fool, can you carry him back to the clinic? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Fool, can you carry him back to the clinic? Shi Zhou fixed his gaze and saw that this was not the follower who pushed her around Zhu Han. Shi Zhou knew the situation as soon as he guessed, where is your master? Zhu Si hurriedly said, the mountain, at the foot of the mountain. The people who lift the sedan chair can't move anymore. Dr. Shi. Shi Zhou stumbled as he was about to walk down. Zhu squatted on the ground, panting and saying, "Dr. Shi, let me carry you on my back. It's getting late and I can't see the road clearly, so don't fall. I was a mountain climber earlier and ran fast." At first glance, Shi Zhou saw that he was almost gasping for breath. If he were to fall on his back and break his head and bleed blood, she would be in dire straits. "Forget it, I'll go by myself. You should stay here and rest," she said. At this moment, the fool suddenly ran out of the clinic and pushed Zhu, who was still squatting in front of Shi Zhou, aside. He squatted in front of Shi Zhou and said, "Back." Shi Zhou said, "Are you carrying me on your back?" Seeing that she couldn't come up, the fool shook his body and said loudly, "Back." Zhu got up from the ground and said, "Dr. Shi, could you please hurry up? Our master was almost exhausted just now, and we don't even know what's going on. Woo-woo. Life is at stake, and time cannot be wasted." Shi Zhou leaned onto the fool's back and said, "Fool, I trusted you to carry it. You can't throw me." The fool picked up Shi Zhou and his two strong arms tightly wrapped around her legs. Shi Zhou protected the medicine box and hugged his neck, saying, "Let's go." The fool immediately rushed down the mountain. He is tall and has long legs, full of energy, and never stops running all the way, taking advantage of his innate conditions. As soon as the two of them descended the slope, they saw a circle of people surrounding the entrance of the hunter's house. "Master! Master, wake up, sob. You can't leave me and the child behind." Someone advised beside him, "This way, there must be no way to save it. It's better to carry it back quickly." Shi Zhou immediately shouted to the crowd, "Let's disperse." The crowd scattered around, and as soon as Yuan saw Shi Zhou, she cried out, "Dr. Shi, please help my master." Shi Zhou slammed 2 punches into Zhu Han's heart, but Zhu Han didn't react. She continued to punch 4 times in a row, and just as she was about to punch, Zhu Han's eyelids suddenly twitched. She lifted Zhu Han's sleeve, rolled it up to his shoulder, revealing his chubby white arms. Mitsubishi needles fiercely pierced the Tsuchi acupoints on both sides, and the needles were pulled out to release blood. Yuan's face turned white. Shi Zhou comforted and said, "This is acupuncture and bloodletting therapy, which is the fastest way to release heat and toxins from the outside and inside. No matter how slow it is, there won't be enough time." Not long after, Zhu Han's face, which had just turned red and purple, finally gradually calmed down. Yuan looked at Zhu Han's chest heaving with joy and wept, "Master, you're awake." Zhu Han opened his eyes and looked around in confusion, am I still alive?" Yuan immediately bowed to Shi Zhou and said, "Dr. Shi, I shouldn't underestimate you today just because you're young, and I shouldn't ignore your advice." On the way back in the afternoon, Zhu Han felt a bit difficult to catch his breath, but he just kept holding on. He also said that it's rare for his head to feel comfortable these days and he wants to eat something good at night. Unexpectedly, after dinner, he couldn't do it anymore. His body kept collapsing, and neither of them could lift him up. It was then that they remembered what Shi Zhou had said. At that time, Yuan called up the strongest attendants in the family, and the 8 of them took turns carrying sedan chairs to rush towards the halfway mountain clinic. As a result, at the foot of the mountain, the 8 sedan bearers were tired and Zhu Han was also absent-minded. This time, there was no need to spend time on the boat, and the couple voluntarily requested to stay in the restaurant. Shi Zhou tidied up his medicine box and said, "Stay for 50 yuan per night, have a consultation for 100 yuan, receive treatment for 15 yuan, and the cost of the medicine will be calculated separately. Do you have any objections?" Zhu Han lay on the ground and said, "Oh my mother, as long as you can save my life, you can say whatever you want, money is not a problem." The fool poked the fat on Zhu Han's body with a small stick, shaking it. Shi Zhou bent down and asked the fool in a friendly tone, "With all your strength, can you carry him back to the clinic? Tomorrow, I'll buy you steamed buns with meat filling." Her eyebrows and eyes curved, and her face, without any makeup, was as pure as a white gemstone washed away by a mountain spring. Her black pupils and pink lips adorned her face, making her look particularly vivid and lively. The fool looked up at her and then nodded, yes. Great. The fool didn't carry Zhu Han on his back, but instead carried him on his shoulder, as if carrying a huge package, clattering down the slope without even breathing. Shi Zhou was stunned, knowing that the fool had great strength, but he didn't expect his strength to be so great. A great wealth god arrived at the Banshan Medical Center, and Zhenyofu counted money every day with his fingers. Zhu Han stayed at the Banshan Medical Center for a day, which meant that the medical center earned at least 200 won of basic income per day, and the medicine cost was calculated separately. Tong Qingqing was arranged by Shi Zhou to decoct medicine, 10 won a day, and worked with great enthusiasm. Zhenyofu was very jealous and wished he could also help Shi Zhou. During this period, the craftsman arranged by Zhao Tsong came to repair the clinic and specifically told Shi Zhou that the holes on the roof needed to wait for all the materials to arrive before they could be repaired. After staying in the hospital for 6 days, Zhu Han was sent home by Shi Zhou after his last follow-up visit. Zhu Han was shocked and said, "Dr. Shi, are you letting me go now? I think I can stay a few more days. What if I go home and do what I did last time? Who will save me?" Yuan nodded and agreed, yes, stay a few more days, we'll pay. Zhu Han nodded and said, "That's it." Shi Zhou explained. "It's not about money. You are taking medicine, acupuncture and moxibustion and bloodletting in the hospital these days, including eating food in the hospital. You are treating diseases. You also need to go to the hospital for acupuncture and moxibustion every day when you go home." Zhu Han finally let go of his worries. "Dr. Zhen, has today's small advertisement been written?" Shi Zhou has been busy these days, but he hasn't let Zhenyofu be idle. Zhenyofu has already accumulated a thick stack of small advertisements. During this period, Tong Qingzhen even volunteered to go out and post a few times, and now he knows where to choose to post. In the evening, it started pouring rain outside, with a strange smell of blood mixed in with the fragrance of the mountains and trees, seemingly pouring into Shi Zhou's nose. It was raining heavily outside, and the loophole in the room was drizzling with light rain. Tong honestly placed a tile jar on the ground to collect water. Shi Zhou moved his nose and said, "Honestly, are you injured?" Tong Qingzhen immediately put his hand back and said, "I rubbed off some skin." Shi Zhou asked, "Where are fools?" Zhenyofu used a stool as a crutch and propped up his legs as he moved into the room. Just now, he was at the door drinking rainwater from his mouth. He said Shi Zhou stood at the door and said, "Be honest, go see what the fool is doing." Tong Qingzhen went out for a while before dragging the fool back. "Boss, the fool brother just ran into the woods. Look, his clothes are all wet." The fool lowered his head, hunched his tall body, and held his hands in front of him like a pregnant woman, desperately avoiding Shi Zhou's gaze with a guilty heart. End of this chapter.